wooden boat really feels like a living creature. She is made of a material that was once alive. And when a boat gets to be as old as Vixen, there's a lot of memories associated. Vixen went around the world in the 1950s, so now she's done 2 trips around the world. We've had 2 daughters born along the way. Soliana was born 8 years ago in New Zealand. Sepha Jane, who's 4 years old, was born after we arrived in Brazil. As the girls get older, they're more and more helpful on the boat. Soliana can already take the helm for a while, or she can raise a sail if I need her to. By today's standards, Vixen is a pretty simple boat. She's only 34 feet long. She doesn't have a whole lot of systems, so she doesn't cost a lot of money. We also have a pretty simple life. We don't have any monthly bills. We don't have any debt. I work as a boat builder and Tiffany teaches yoga. And this has allowed us to do a lot of sailing and not a whole lot of work to sustain it. A lot of the countries we visited are pretty cheap to live in. It doesn't cost a lot to live there, so that has helped to extend the little money we have. We homeschool our kids on Vixen, and they also get a lot of experience from the countries we visit and the people we meet, and just exposure to the world.
And now you know what they're saying. They're saying if you can go across and you can go up, you can make the letter T.
Our girls never seem to get bored on the boat. They always have something to do. They always are making up games or creating stories or doing puzzles or whatever. They're playing with their dolls. It's always exciting to arrive in a new country by boat, and you have such isolation for so many days or weeks, and then there's this cultural overload when you go to land, you go to the market, you have to exchange money, you buy new food, there might be a new language. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but it's also very exciting. The great thing about having kids on board is that when we do arrive in a new place, they immediately find friends and we inevitably meet the families. I think when you arrive as a family, you're less intimidating and more identifiable to the local people. If you were just to stay home and read the newspaper every day, your view of the world would be quite grim and you would worry a lot about piracy. If you were actually to take a boat like we have out around the world for 10 years, my view is that humans are pretty nice. And if you were to land on some deserted beach and saw someone there walking on the beach, the odds are that they would be nice to you. One thing about this trip is it's given me real faith in humanity, that people will treat you kindly, and maybe we've been lucky, but I think that you can read the news too much and think the world is a bad place. One thing about living on a fairly small boat, and especially one like Vixen, where you don't have a lot of protection from the weather, is you really feel like you're out in nature. And I enjoy that. And we've had a lot of interaction with whales and dolphins, and even more than that, just the stars at night and the waves and the wind. You're very aware of all these things, much more than if you lived in a house. You're aware of the tides and what's happening in the natural world, the birds. So that's a big part of living on the boat. Often the places we go, you really can't visit unless you have your own yacht to go there, because there's no landing strip for an airplane, and it's really too shallow to bring a big cruise ship in. So a lot of the really special places in the world, nobody except for sailors have even heard about. I think one of the fun things about going on an adventure is that you don't have all the comforts of home. So when we do go on a long trip, we look forward to these things that we've missed, like having a cold beer or having a hot shower. And I think that's important to remember, that to go without these things, it makes you appreciate them much more. Even like when we go into a house and have water running out of a tap, I think if you haven't carried water on your shoulder, like in a 5-gallon jerry can, several hundred yards, and then rowing them out to the boat, to see water being wasted is very difficult. Yeah, our life is lived at a much slower pace than most of our friends. And I notice this when I go home, where people are frantically working to pay off a mortgage. We take a long time to do stuff, and even more with 2 kids. I mean, some days we don't even get off the boat. And I think for a lot of people that would be a bit of a shock, but usually we're pretty laid back and we can take our time to do stuff. We might like just do one thing, like make bread, or we might take a trip to the market. And I think if you're really ambitious, that might be kind of boring. But we've been doing it long enough that I find a lot of satisfaction in just the simple day-to-day life. It might be argued that we jeopardized our future by going sailing during a time when our friends were saving for retirement or paying off mortgages. But when I think of all the incredible places we've been, it's hard to imagine that the time could have been better spent.